And President Trump says Iran has just 2 to 3 days to make a deal, and that he postponed a planned attack for today at the request of the Gulf states, which say a legitimate peace proposal is forthcoming. Joining us to discuss is Eric Mandel. He's founder and director of the Middle East Political Information Network. Thanks for joining us this evening, Eric. What's your understanding of the Gulf partners that the president is alluding to, who requested more time before planning an attack or ending the ceasefire?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I don't want to take information at face value. I worry that could be truthful or that it could be an excuse. We're talking about the nations of Qatar, UAE, and Saudi Arabia, and all three we should never lump together. They each have their own interests. The president is in a bit of a bind at this point of time. He thinks that with tremendous kinetic actions that he's had, and they really have been amazing tactical victories against Iran with the cooperation of the Israelis, that Iran would have come to the negotiating table. Iran has gone in the opposite direction, mainly because we think of them as Western in logic, and basically they are a revolutionary jihadist regime. And we saw comments today from the new supreme leader that backed up that they are having a jihad again against the West and America. So these other countries are very worried that America will not be there for them in the long run, and they'll have to live with an Iran because they can't pick up, Saudi Arabia can't pick up its country and move it to a safer location, and they'll have to make a deal with an angry Iran down the road. So I believe that these countries are very wary, and the president really needs to lay out the case, not so much to the Gulf nations, but directly to the American people, why we are there, what is our national security interests. And one of the major ones, which Vice President Vance, I believe, spoke about today, was non-proliferation, that if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, not only will it be dangerous having that in a jihadist regime, but other nations in the region are going to want nuclear weapons, and that will be a very dangerous scenario for our security interests. And we need to define what success is, and we need to define what failure is. And failure goes to really think of last week when the president met with President Xi. And basically, we were thinking of the Straits of Taiwan, the Straits of Molucca, the South China Sea. If we don't open up the Straits of Hormuz, that message to China increases the chances of us getting pulled into a war in the Indo-Pacific by what we do in the Middle East.
Eric, based on your response, it sounds like you don't think that a acceptable deal will come through in the next 2 to 3 days. And if that is the case, what would a military campaign look like?
So it's not what a acceptable deal is. The Iranians have a deal they're putting out there, but it's not a deal that America can take. So basically what the Americans, what my country wants on American national security interests, I'll be in Congress this week, is that their nuclear program is contained with verification and inspections, that their ballistic missiles are under, that they're limited of what they can do, that they can't support their proxies. And they're agreeing to none of this. So what does that mean? President has three options. Option one is he could escalate. And how long can he escalate for? And what that escalation, what is the tactical gain you're going to get there? What we cannot do at the end of this is leave the Straits of Hormuz to be closed. That must be open. That is a binary choice. There's no in between here. So that means degrading the drone and missile sites along the Straits of Hormuz. It means more time demining and also being able to have transport of destroyers or hopefully that you'll have some allies come along to open up the Straits of Hormuz. And then the president has two other choices. I don't believe he will capitulate and take a bad deal, but the other choice is a war of attrition. Why war of attrition? Because the Iranians are not getting in any gasoline. They need gasoline, and the people will get very angry. The Iranian people may have an uprising over that alone. And the oil, they could implode because they have running out of storage capabilities there. So it's a matter of a war of clocks at this point of time. And we need not to have the impatient Western clock. We have to let the Iranians know that. And the president, though, because now You have 4 Republican senators who are voting for the War Powers Act going on. And so the president really needs to make the case to the American people. And I really believe there's 10, 15% of the American people, not just political independents, who want to hear why we are doing this and why this is important and why the president deserves some more time.
Could the president not hit the IRGC regional outposts and really decapitate them in another 60-day War Powers Act without having to go through Congress, et cetera? Would that be enough time in your view?
There's a lot of possibilities about what one can do. What really one needs to do, if we're being totally honest, and this is not, as the Israelis would say, mowing the grass, what we really need to do is empower the Iranian people. We really need to arm the Iranian people, help bring the desperate parts of them, the minority groups, together with the majority Persians who want to overthrow this regime. We know how to do it. The CIA did that in the 80s with the Mujahideen, getting the Soviet Union out of Afghanistan. But the good news is we won't end up with the Taliban. The Iranian people, overwhelmingly, and that includes the Persians, the Lors, the Baluchs, the Azaris, Kurds, Arabs, they are going to be, at the very least, neutral, but most likely a pro-Western country. And that's the most important thing to stabilize the Middle East. So one of the things that we want to attack is IRGC, Bajij, and in coordination with the Israelis. Is 60 days enough? This regime thinks if it survives, even living in caves, it is a victory. It's not a victory. But the damage is going to be extensive because they're willing to attack all of those Gulf nations' infrastructure, and that could be a profound effect on the world economy, and especially the president, who is a president and political, is going to worry about the midterm elections. He's worrying about the 250th anniversary of America in July 4th, does not want to be in a war. But I think if we're going to advance our interests, we're probably going to need to be in some type of kinetic actions going past July 4th.
And can those two things in conjunction, arming the groups that do want to overthrow the radical elements that control Iran, along with kinetic action, can those two things together in coordination, potentially with the Israelis and maybe support from other countries, can that achieve that tipping point that you're describing?
If we have patience, it will not take weeks. And it will not take a few months. It's going to take, and including with that embargo of stopping commercial shipping both ways to Iran, it can take many, many months. But I think that is the only answer to the question of how to deal with Iran. We have learned that Iran we're dealing with we got to think about this as a revolutionary jihadist regime who thinks that way. They want to take over Saudi Arabia and have Mecca and Medina. They think Bahrain is one of their provinces. They have made it abundantly clear again and again, with the blood of so many Americans on their hands, either directly from Iran or from one of the proxies, principally Hezbollah, that they are not going to go away easy. And this is a message that is going geopolitically, that is heard around the world of how we handle this. And if we walk away over political reasons, this will haunt us, haunt this president and haunt future presidents, because we're going to be back here again and again.
Well, like is often the case, fast, good, and cheap, you can only pick two of the three. Eric Mandel, thank you so much for sharing your analysis.
Thank you for having me.